What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, and welcome in for another live stream. This one being a little bit of a surprise, not just for you guys. I didn't have it scheduled on the channel. I didn't have it scheduled in my head. I wasn't planning on going live today. I was planning on just recording a 10-15-minute video and uploading it on the channel at some point in the afternoon, but screw it. We called an audible, just like Russell Wilson will at the line of scrimmage later on in the year. During the regular season for the Giants, calling this audible and coming on here for a live stream just for you guys. Because honestly, I was thinking about it. You guys love the live stream so much. Why not just jump on and do a live stream for a little while? It's not going to be the full 1 hour live stream, but it's going to be a live stream nonetheless. And I appreciate everybody who is tuning in and joining with me for this shorter live stream, about 45 minutes. As Cam Simpson says in the chat, shout out to you, my great friend, being in here bright and early. You're one of the first ones in, first one to comment. Shout out to you, Cameron, saying back-to-back live streams today. Not just back-to-back, back-to-back-to-back. Yeah, that's right. I'll be live here for a little while. Then at 6 p.m. Eastern, you guys can find me live on the Bleacher Report app. I do that every Wednesday and every Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern. And then at 7 p.m. Eastern, you can find me live on Giants Collective every Wednesday and Friday as well. So triple live stream day for me, but ready to go ahead and kick this off and talk about some of the Giants players and coaches who are under pressure to perform in 2025. So excited to go ahead and dive into that. Before I do, let me say what's up to everybody in the chat. Christian saying love the content. Shout out to you, Christian. Rocco saying let's go, notifications on. Thank you so much. That's why I always say make sure you guys ring the bell on your way out of here so that you don't miss any of my impromptu live streams. And just as a kind of, a point on this, impromptu live streams are something that I want to do more of. I want to just be able to jump on the channel whenever, not have to schedule things out in advance. And, I just want to be able to jump on here. And when I feel like talking Giants, I'm just going to start talking Giants. And that's probably not going to take shape now and maybe not for a little while. But once we're in the season and there's so much to talk about and there's so much going on, I just want to jump on, record an episode or do a live stream as often as I can. And so that's probably what you're going to see from our coverage during this 2025 season here on Fireside Giants. A lot more of me, essentially, is what I'm trying to say. So we're already setting it up for it to be like that. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be a lot of fun. And that's why I always say, make sure you ring the bell so you do not miss an episode or a live stream. Pat Basson, yo. Nice bass that you caught there. Pretty cool. You a Florida kid? I see a lot of basses like that because I live down here in Florida and my cousins love to fish. I don't really fish, but my cousins love to. Go Big Blue, new to the channel. Brandon1120, thank you so much for tuning in. Happy to see you here, new to the channel. I hope that you stick around with us. JW trying to make me angry on this Wednesday afternoon. We're going to skip over that comment, but we will say impromptu live streams are cool. Thank you, JW, and I appreciate it. Love the content. It's slow. Giants making moves. I do think they're making moves, and it is definitely slow right now, but nonetheless, I am undeterred. I am here to talk Giants anyway and give you guys what you want, which is big scatterbooms, isn't it? You want a scatterboo? I know that's what you're all waiting for. But without further ado, let's go ahead. 3 minutes into the stream, let's start the discussion. And the discussion, as you can see in the title and as you can see right here beneath me, we're going to be talking about Giants players who are under pressure to perform. And we're going to kick this thing off by talking about Kayvon Thibodeaux. The reason why I feel as though Kayvon Thibodeaux is under pressure to perform is because the Giants just drafted Abdul Carter, right? That's kind of self-explanatory, but it's not just that. On top of that, he's a former 5th overall pick. This is a player that the Giants really wanted to be a perennial double-digit sack guy. We saw a flash of that in 2023. He put up 11.5 sacks, but in 2024, regressed pretty significantly in a way that a lot of Giants fans clearly are frustrated by. There were a lot of Giants fans this offseason who called for trading Kayvon Thibodeaux, who said he's not worth what the Giants invested in him. And there's been a lot of critics of Thibodeaux. And so now entering this 4th season of his career, he did have his 5th-year option officially picked up. So he is under contract for another year. But one of the reasons why I praised that move of the Giants picking up the 5th-year option is because not only does it give him, Thibodeaux, more time to break out with the Giants, but it also gives the Giants more flexibility if they want to trade him rather than him playing out this season and then potentially walking in free agency. The Giants have that 5th year of contractual control where they could say, all right, he played this year. Now going into the 2026 offseason, let's go ahead and trade him then. So The fifth-year option, important because the Giants, let's say he does have a breakout this year, they're not stuck paying him immediately like they were with Daniel Jones, but also important because it gives them more control over his future, whether that future is with the Giants or with another franchise. So Thibodeaux this season essentially is auditioning. Can you play in the system? Can you play alongside pass rushers like Abdul Carter and Brian Burns and still carve out your own role and make your own individual impact, but also maintain the impact within the unit? This is a real do or die situation, in my opinion, for Kayvon Thibodeaux. So, and Brandon, I think you make a good point. As a 3-win team, it's hard to assess anything when the team isn't motivated. It's 100% true. And I was reading through the comments on yesterday's live stream. For those of you who weren't with the live chat, but were watching after the fact and leaving your comments on like the uploaded video portion of it, I saw a lot of comments saying, how can you even evaluate Jalen Hyatt? Because, he hasn't had a quarterback. The team has been bad and they haven't had good quarterback play throwing him the ball. It's really hard to evaluate wide receivers in that environment. And that's absolutely 100% true. I don't disagree with that. But that doesn't change the fact that Jalen Hyatt is still under pressure, right? Like he still needs to put it together this upcoming season. And I think the same thing of Thibodeaux. It is hard to assess him. Last year, it was a really bad team. And the defense was ultra inconsistent. He was banged up. The scheme was pretty vanilla, and they didn't blitz much. They didn't create opportunities for him. All these things are true. But even still, the stats are what the stats are. The production is what the production is. And he needs to take a step forward in 2025 because the Giants did just invest a top 3 pick into Abdul Carter. If you look at the assets that the Giants have poured into their defensive line, it's rather extreme. The 5th overall pick in Kayvon Thibodeaux in 2022, a $26 million per season contract in Dexter Lawrence, who's also a former first-round pick. They just went ahead last offseason and traded a second-round pick for Brian Burns, then handed him over $30 million per season, or about $30 million. I think it's a little under, actually. And then this year, a number 3 overall pick in Abdul Carter and the number 65 overall pick in Darius Alexander. So that's a lot of assets. That's an accumulation, a stockpile of premium, top 100 picks, expensive contracts, a 5th-year option on some of those guys. So it's a lot. And the Giants ultimately, how much can you invest into the defensive line before it does become imbalanced for the rest of the roster, right? That's a question. So for Thibodeaux, you need to prove that you're worth the investment. Otherwise, we've invested into some of these other players. We're going to roll with them to make their impact, and we're going to go ahead and reinvest our funds that were being put into you into another position that's currently weaker on the roster, whether that be WR2 or, maybe another safety, a corner, or offensive lineman, whatever the case might be. However, the Giants want to go ahead and continue fleshing out the other holes on their roster. So that's essentially my point. Kayvon Thibodeaux is now a very tradable asset for the Giants, but the best thing that he can do, ball out and make himself untradeable for the New York Giants, or ball out and make him a player who the Giants can get a lot of in return for in a potential trade. So just under pressure this year, Kayvon Thibodeaux needs to perform, in my opinion. Maybe some don't feel like he's as under pressure, but I think he is under tremendous amounts of pressure this season. And yeah, Rocco, I think that having Abdul Carter will elevate Kayvon Thibodeaux, but if not, I do think he winds up on the trade block midway through the season. Now, I don't know how much he would be able to get, much the Giants would get in a trade for him, but I think back on when Montez Sweat was traded by the Commanders, I feel like, he was a first-round pick who had his ups and downs, very similar at the stage of his career when he was traded to the Bears that Thibodeaux finds himself in now. And if I'm not mistaken, the Chicago Bears ended up trading a late second-round pick for Montez Sweat that season that they acquired him midway through the year. And I do think that the Giants could potentially swindle a team into a second, if not a third, and at worst, I think a 4th-round pick mid-season for Kayvon Thibodeaux. But I feel pretty confident they could probably get a 3rd-round pick for him, which they don't have a 3rd this season. So there's extra motivation to make a deal if they get an offer and Thibodeaux isn't carving out his own role with Abdul Carter on the roster. Like, let's just say that, Abdul Carter is getting, a lot of the playing time and Kayvon's only getting 50% of snaps. That's a player that you probably want to end up trading. Again, I think they're all going to play at least 70% of snaps on the edge group. I think they're going to rotate them in real well. But it is a question mark. If Kayvon's snap count falls into that 40 to 50% range, you might as well just go ahead and trade him. Cam Simpson with a great question. Who are all the Giants on a contract year? I'm going to go ahead and pull up over the cap once again, as I have done in like the last 5 live streams, and try and take a look at that. Bobby Okereke, how many years does he have left on his deal? No, he's got one more deal. Wan'Dale Robinson is one of them. I know that off the top of my head. I know Micah McFadden off the top of my head as well. Jermaine Illuminor, that's one that I'm happy I pulled up over the cap for. Jermaine Illuminor is in a contract year. He only signed a 2-year deal when he signed with the Giants 2 off seasons ago, so this is the final year of his contract. Evan Neal, obviously, is in a contract year. Cordell Flott is in a contract year, the cornerback at LSU. Technically, I would say Russell Wilson is in a contract year. He signed a 1-year deal, and he'll be a free agent next offseason. This is a big year for him. So all of these guys, I think also fall under that bucket of, are they under pressure? So it does tie into the conversation of this episode, which is why I thought this was a great comment to pull up. Yeah, those are the guys I'm looking at right now off the top of my head. These are the guys who are in contract years and do need to step up. So Wan'Dale Robinson definitely being probably the one that stands out the most. And then Kayvon Thibodeaux does have the 5th-year option on his contract, but even still, I would call this a contract year for him because most first-round picks don't make it to the 5th-year option. Before they get traded, they're supposed to get, or before they get extended, they're supposed to get extended earlier than that. So, Rocker, this is a good point. Burns at one point was playing like 90%, in some games 100% of snaps, which was absolutely insane to me. The fact that he had games where he's playing 100% of snaps on the edge, that's completely abnormal for an edge rusher to do that. So don't expect that to happen this year. I think there's going to be a much better rotation in the edge group. And before I move on to the second player that I want to discuss as an under pressure player going into 2025, I'm going to pull up a couple more of these chats. JW saying hit the like button. Yes, please, guys. It really does help the channel. Let's see. I got Shedeur Sanders fans coming at me left and right because I called him goofy. That's, you know what? Fight them off because we have Jackson Dart, and Jackson Dart is the antithesis of goofy. So Bucky said, I had a dream we traded for Drake London next year. Is that too far-fetched? I don't think it's too far-fetched because I think the Giants next offseason are going to be looking to make a splash to bring in a premier playmaker to pair with Malik Nabers. I think they like what they're building with the young pieces in their backfield, but in terms of having a 1A wide receiver and a 1B wide receiver, I think that's something the Giants are going to want. Drake London might not be the guy just because he's the number one receiver that the Falcons want to help develop Michael Penix, but the Giants are going to look for somebody as a premier playmaker to pair with Nabers to help develop Dart. So whether that's London or someone else, I definitely think keep an eye on the receiver market. And then this is huge. Then we cannot start the year 0-3. This is from JW. The beginning of the year is tough for us, but if we go 0-3, then the season will be wrapped 100%. The Giants have to pick up a win. It's going to be an underdog win, but they got to pick up a win between their games against the Commanders week 1, Cowboys week 2, and Chiefs week 3. I got to find a way. All right, now the second player that I want to discuss here as an under pressure player to perform in 2025, I need you all to just be patient with me as I explain this, because I think some of you might see the thumbnail, might see the guy on it and think, all right, Anthony, maybe you're kind of crazy. Maybe you're losing me. I don't think I am if you let me explain this. Andrew Thomas is under pressure to perform this season. No, he's not in danger of getting traded. He's not at risk of being cut. He's not under that kind of pressure. But he's under pressure because he hasn't been healthy for the last 2 years. And as soon as he's gone down with an injury, the entire Giants team has sunk with him. It's been a sinking ship. It's like you've got a giant plank of wood covering up this huge hole in this pirate ship. And as soon as that piece of wood gets stripped right off, the ship goes down sinking. And that piece of wood is Andrew Thomas. The New York Giants desperately need this guy to stay healthy this season. He is the most valuable player on the New York Giants roster. And the Giants have been playing without him for more than 50% of their games in the last 2 seasons. And in many ways, that's kind of unacceptable. They need this guy to be healthy this season. Whatever he has to do, however he can maintain his health, whatever he needs to do in order to get into the lineup week in, week out, and maintain his status as the starting left tackle, He needs to find a way to get it done, get into the starting lineup and stay there. Because without Andrew Thomas, this New York Giants team has simply been unable to operate effectively. So they need him to perform this year. And they paid him quite a lot of money a few off seasons ago. And ever since they paid Andrew Thomas, he hasn't been healthy. So he is under pressure to finally start living up to this contract and be present, be on the field, and be healthy for the New York Giants. Because if he isn't, all of our hopes about being underdogs and upsetting and getting wins this season and maybe pushing for the playoffs with Russell Wilson and creating a good environment for Jackson Dart, all of it goes out of the window if Andrew Thomas is injured once again this season. So you absolutely cannot convince me otherwise. He is under pressure this year. I agree with JW. I need 15 solid games out of Andrew Thomas this season. Now, listen, if they're eliminated by week 10 and then he gets hurt after that, that's one thing. That's different. But in the games where the Giants have something to play for, things are competitive, I need Andrew Thomas on the football field. Again, the Giants paid him, and ever since they paid him, he hasn't really played football. He's barely been on the field. So the Giants have to start applying some pressure here. They need to tell Andrew Thomas, like, listen, it's not a contract year for you, but you got to treat it like it is, because if you are looking ahead to 2026, that is an out in Andrew Thomas's contract. You can start to get out of Andrew Thomas's contract next offseason if you cut him post June 1st with a $1.9 million cap relief. Or if you end up trading him, you'll save over $12 million in salary cap relief, or potentially 17.4 if you trade him post June 1st. So again, I don't think it's likely that they would trade Andrew Thomas. It'd be very difficult to replace a left tackle. However, with all of the injuries that he's had, if he's injured once again this season and barely plays, and there's a team that's willing to give you a top 50 pick for him next offseason, you might take the cap relief in the top 50 pick and move on, because you'd rather spend that money on a player who is going to be on the football field. You can't have 3 straight seasons where you're not on the field and expect to maintain your status as the Giants starting left tackle. It's not acceptable. So in my opinion, of the 5 players that I've identified who are under the most pressure for the New York Giants, I absolutely think that Andrew Thomas is on that list. He belongs on that list because he is under pressure to stay healthy this season. Otherwise, the Giants are going to collapse once again. It's unbelievable the amount of pressure these quarterbacks face for the Giants in general, but especially once Andrew Thomas is off the field, the offense collapsed each of the last few seasons. I remember last year, the Giants had a top 10 pass protecting unit through the first 5 weeks of the year. And then Thomas went down with an injury. And where did they hover? Well, somewhere around 30. So let's see. Colton, no problem. No need to apologize. Happy that you're here today. It's going great. I'm feeling good. Went for a run this morning, hit the gym. Got a lot of work done. Feeling real good. Hope you're doing well also. JW saying AT is definitely under pressure, agreeing with me. Thank you, JW. Can't remember the last time he played a full season. Well, I'll tell you, it was 2022. The funny thing about 2022 is that that's the last time the Giants had their 2 most important positions fully healthy, that being the quarterback position and the left tackle position. And not a coincidence, it's the last time they went to the playoffs. Andrew Thomas played 16 games that season. He was a second-team All-Pro. He was fantastic that year. Since then, he got paid, and he's played a combined 16 games across 2 years, meaning he missed 18, so he's only played in less than 50% of eligible games the last 2 seasons. But 2022 was the year that Brian Daboll had a decent starting quarterback for all 16, 17 games in the regular season, and his left tackle, his most important player. And both of those players were fully healthy that season. Giants went to the playoffs. Got to be healthy. Give Daboll a fighting chance, especially with his back against the wall this season. And don't worry, he's under pressure too. Brian Daboll is. We're going to talk about him in just a little bit. And MDOT has a good question here. I see we have a super chat. I'm going to get to that in just a second, Sam. I see you. But MDOT with a good question, I think ties into the conversation about Andrew Thomas in particular being under pressure. Do you think the Giants will restructure Burns, Lawrence, and Thomas to fix the cap hell we're in, as well as cutting Eric Gray after June 1st? Gray's definitely on the chopping block. I think it's going to be really hard for him to make the roster. But in terms of restructuring Burns and Lawrence, I do expect that because they are foundational pieces who aren't going anywhere. Andrew Thomas, on the other hand, I don't think the Giants will want to restructure because he is under pressure to stay healthy this season. And if they restructure him, they're not going to be able to trade or release him next offseason. They're going to have to hold on to him for at least another year if they restructure him this offseason. So, knowing how injured he's been, you want to protect yourself just in case he gets injured again this season so that you're not financially in cap hell the following year. So I actually think the Giants are going to hold off on potentially restructuring Andrew Thomas and instead try and make him play out the contract and see if eventually there's an opportunity where if they need to move on, they can, or if they can restructure it down the road once he's had a couple extra healthy seasons under his belt. But for now, I don't think they're going to want to touch the Andrew Thomas contract. Mosley agrees with me. Appreciate you for tuning in. Sam saying, hi, Tony. Do you think Gray is under pressure to make the roster? Well, Sam, thank you so much for the super chat. Kind of spoiled your question up there, but I'll speak more on the reason why I do believe Eric Gray is under pressure. And it's really just the makeup of the roster right now. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the roster for all of us to look at and answer your super chat fully, Sam. Once again, thank you so much for dropping the fiver. So if you're looking at the depth chart at running back for the Giants, and keep in mind, this is only the depth chart here in May, and things are going to change by the time we get to July. But right now, the Giants have Devin Singletary. They have Tyrone Tracy. They have Cam Scatterbo, Eric Gray, Rashawn Baker, Dante Miller. That's Turbo Miller. So of these guys, the ones that the Giants can release to get cap relief, that's actually somewhat significant in the month of July, is Devin Singletary and Eric Gray. They could save a few million from each of those guys. Of those two, they would be more likely to hold on to Devin Singletary because he's a better and more experienced player. And Eric Gray has had a lot of issues kind of establishing himself as a legitimate NFL player. So I think ultimately he's on the chopping block. He is a player who, if he doesn't perform really well this summer, is probably on his way out because the Giants just simply don't have a need for him. He does have some special teams experience, but he's never performed well on special teams. He just has experience, which isn't all that valuable. And so essentially, I think that they're going to value the other guys that they have over Eric Gray and probably end up moving on from him this summer, especially because, as I said earlier, this is the roster right now in May. It's going to look different in July. And I say that because the Giants every year seem to find some running back that they pick up, whether that's off the waiver wire at the end of preseason, whether that's through free agency in preparation for training camp, or if it's another UDFA, whatever. The Giants likely will find a way to add more running back talent, somebody who probably has more upside than Eric Gray, similar to what they did with Turbo Miller last offseason. And I think they like Turbo Miller a little bit more, and he's probably more likely to be the one who makes the roster. So maybe he'll be on the practice squad, though. But all right. Let's get back to the topic of discussion. The next player that we're going to bring up as an under pressure player is going to be Deontay Banks. I think he's under a ton of pressure, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. However, Rob sent in another super chat. Thank you so much, Rob, saying, I feel like Russell Wilson is under a lot of pressure because if he doesn't perform, he may never start again for any team. You know what? Honestly, you're right. And I hadn't fully thought of that. Maybe he does belong on this list for that reason. However, I'll say I wanted to frame this as guys who are under pressure, who are long-term potential players for the Giants, right? Like Andrew Thomas is under pressure because his long-term future with the Giants can be compromised if he isn't healthy. Kayvon Thibodeaux, if he doesn't play well, his long-term future with the Giants is compromised. Deontay Banks, who we're about to talk about, same story. But for Russell Wilson, realistically, he's probably here in 2025 and he's not here in 2026. Even if he plays well, he probably gets paid in 2026 and the Giants won't pay him. They're just going to roll with Jackson Dart. So he definitely is under pressure, though. He's 36 now, I believe. He's nearing the end of his career. He's not the player he used to be. And we're definitely getting to that stage in Russell Wilson's career where retirement's absolutely on the horizon. And we're probably expecting him to move on from the NFL sooner rather than later. I don't think he's a player who's going to want to be a backup. Right now, he's a bridge. And that's probably as bad as he's going to allow it to get. If he ends up getting to a backup role, I think he retires. So you're right. If he doesn't play well this season, he's probably not starting again for any other team. And essentially, this could be a slippery slope towards retirement for Russell Wilson. So, Rob, good point, and thank you so much for the super chat. All right, so I see a couple more chats in here, and I will get back to them in just a second. But I do want to move on to number 3 in the players under pressure for the New York Giants. And also, I'm not ordering these in any particular way. Like, I'm not saying this guy is more under pressure than that guy or this guy. There's one guy who I think is most under pressure, and that's who we're going to finish with. But the rest of them, just consider them in no particular order. Next one being, though, as I said, Deontay Banks. Deontay Banks is a former first-round pick. It's time to start showing some progress, right? He had some flashes as a rookie. We expected him to take a step forward in year 2. Instead, he had a sophomore slump in year 2. The Giants kind of signed a player in free agency this offseason to take Deontay Banks' role somewhat away from him, right? Bringing in Paulson and Thibodeaux. And so now what you're looking at is a situation where Banks is the CB2 for the Giants. And if you're not playing well, you didn't play well as the CB1. If you move into the CB2 role and you still don't play well, what is your future with the New York Giants? And do you have one is going to become a legitimate question. So this is a big make or break year, in my opinion, year 3 for Deontay Banks. Obviously, he has the 4th season under contract, and then he has the 5th-year option. But the Giants are going to want to see him make some progress this year before they get to next offseason when they have to make a decision on his 5th-year option. They don't want him to have that year 4 breakout like Daniel Jones had a year 4 breakout, because then you're going into that offseason where they would be entering their 5th season, having not picked up that 5th-year option and then needing to negotiate with a player who's only had 1 breakout year and not sustained success. So again, for Deontay Banks, the Giants are definitely feeling the pressure, and so is he. Got to perform this year so that you can get that 5th-year option on your contract and ultimately have more flexibility moving forward. And listen, I'll say this. He's definitely under pressure because he's a former first-round pick and he's a cornerback, and the Giants invested a lot and have asked a lot of him. But the reason why I feel confident that this pressure will turn into a diamond here for Deontay Banks is because I just think that he's been dealt a bad hand so far. I don't think he's going to have the effort and character concerns this season, because I think that a lot of that was the result of having a lack of leadership in the Giants secondary. Deontay Banks was very, very close, best friends, arguably, with Xavier McKinney. When Xavier McKinney walked in free agency last offseason, it had an extreme adverse effect on all of the young defensive backs who had been there prior. Deontay Banks more so than any of them. I mean, listen, from a football standpoint, when you're the cornerback and you're pressing up on CeeDee Lamb and maybe he gets a step on you and you're in trail coverage now, you're screwed when you don't have a really good safety back there. You're screwed more often times than not. But with Xavier McKinney behind you, maybe the quarterback doesn't make that throw. Maybe the window is a little bit tighter, and so he holds on to the ball and he moves on to read 2. But without Xavier McKinney there, and no, I'm not disrespecting Tyler Nubin in any way. I thought he was really good as a rookie, but he wasn't the level caliber player of a veteran like Xavier McKinney. Created open windows, and it created moments where getting beat over top meant giving up touchdowns rather than giving up chunk gains, right? And so, unfortunately, I think that really, from a football standpoint, fed into Deontay Banks' struggles. But then from a mental standpoint, the lack of leadership in the secondary group definitely had an effect on Banks because of the outbursts and the lack of effort, nobody holding him accountable within the locker room. Obviously, Dexter Lawrence tried to do that, but if you think that the 350-pound man in Dexter Lawrence, who's never played cornerback before, is going to emotionally connect and from a football standpoint vibe with Deontay Banks, you're sorely mistaken. That's not how that's going to work. So now that the Giants have Javon Holland, and Paulson and Thibodeaux, 2 really good secondary pieces and really good leaders in that secondary, I feel confident that Deontay Banks is going to play with more effort and with more clarity and confidence, because confidence is number one. Banks last year as a CB1 was facing a gauntlet, was going up against the CeeDee Lambs, the Terry McLaurins, and everybody else, A.J. Brown. I mean, he was going up against a serious slew of wide receiver talent last season. And he's still going to face a lot of really good wide receivers this season as the CB2. There's a lot of good WR2s in this league, especially on the Giants' schedule. However, it's not the same as going up against the number one guy every single week and needing to be the number one guy every single week. So I just think all in all, things are going to be a little bit easier for Deontay Banks. The only thing that's going to hold Banks back, once again, to me, is going to be coaching. The pressure's off his shoulders in terms of being the CB1 and moving to the CB2 role. But now it's like if you're not good at CB2, you're probably being moved on from, which is why he's under so much pressure. But the pressure's off in terms of not having to face WR1s. He's got leadership and talent around him now in the secondary. Now it's just about the defensive scheme. Are you going to play a scheme, Shane Bowen, that's going to allow Deontay Banks to thrive? Because we really need that. It's really going to come down to Shane Bowen, who I know a lot of you have major question marks in and don't feel confident in. And honestly, I think I'm with you. I'm not super confident in Shane Bowen myself. But before we move on to the fourth player that I want to talk about as being under pressure for the New York Giants, I want to get into some of these chats that I saw because there were some interesting things in here, like this one from In-Can Enforcer. Hopefully I said your name right. If not, correct me. I won't be offended. Please correct me because I like getting everybody's names right. But thank you so much for leaving a chat saying, I have been following you guys for a while, but first time joining your live. Would like to say you guys do a great job covering our Giants. In-Can, thank you so much. It's great to have you in here. First time viewer on a live. We've been getting a few of those chats recently, which means we're definitely doing something right. I love doing the live streams. I think they're so much fun, and it allows us to connect one-on-one with you guys, answer your questions, and really foster some growth in this community. And that's what this is all about, as I've said before. Fireside Giants is not just a brand. It's not just a channel. It's not, just a YouTube show. It's a community. That's the goal of it. And so these live streams are really helping us achieve that goal of creating that sense of community. So thank you for joining, and to everybody else, share this with your friends. Have them join this Fireside Giants community. This is the place to be, as you all know. Michael saying, isn't Scat supposed to be what we thought Gray would be? Any thoughts on bets? We lost Joel Thomas to the Saints, and not a lot of high-profile running backs from Iowa. Well, Caleb Johnson just came out of the draft this year. He was a player that I thought the Giants might end up drafting because he played at Iowa, and Liddell Betts, the new running backs coach who you're referring to, coached him. And while coaching Caleb Johnson broke every single running back record at Iowa. So he was a pretty high-profile running back, not a first-round pick by any means, but a really good running back who found success in his collegiate season. But I think Liddell Betts, being a player's coach, a former player-turned-coach, is actually pretty exciting for the Giants, and I actually do think that'll be a pretty good marriage between coach and talent. So Round Earth, I agree with you. He's under less pressure because he is not facing WR1s every week, but I think he's under pressure again because now you're facing WR2s. You better play better, right? Like, you need to be a better player. Since Giants are like, we took some pressure off your shoulders. You don't have to go up against CeeDee Lamb every week. Now you go ahead against George Pickens. But you don't have to go against the WR1. You're going against the WR2. So we took some pressure off your shoulders. But now, if you're still getting cooked by WR2s, you're going to be out of the lineup. We're going to have to put Cordell Flott in there in your place, right? So I think he's under pressure for that reason. Bucky Boy, one player who immediately comes to mind here is a semi-realistic WR2 for the Giants next year. It's Alec Pierce. He's in a contract year this season. He's Indianapolis Colts wide receiver. He's big, 6'4", really fast, really athletic, and go up there and make contested catches. He might not be a legitimate WR1 threat, but in terms of being a really good WR2, Alec Pierce immediately comes to mind. He's projected to be a free agent next offseason. So before we move on with the discussion, I do see what was just dropped in the chat, and it's an absolute nuke from Corp CA. Thank you so much to Corp CA, and for that, you're going to get 3 big scattabooms. Scattaboo! Boom! Boom! I know you guys love the scattabooms, and when we get a big super chat like this, we're going to drop some big scattabooms for you. So Corp CA, thank you so much. Really do appreciate the generosity. It's truly incredible. You're one of the big donors for this channel. Can't thank you enough, man. Seriously, super awesome. So the chat that you dropped in saying the last time we had a feared pass rusher, LT was the name. The last time we had a blonde quarterback, his name was Phil Simms. Is history repeating itself with Carter as our next feared pass rusher and Dart as our blonde quarterback? If that's the case, I'm ready for our 5th title. Well, let me tell you this. I'm also ready for our 5th title. And the last time that we had a running back who punched you in the mouth was Brandon Jacobs, and he also got a ring. And now we got one in Cam Scatterboom. But I do think we had feared pass rushers with Michael Strahan. People definitely feared Strahan. 22.5 sacks in 2006. I think he made that record. So he was a feared pass rusher. Teams definitely feared JPP. They feared Justin Tuck. So I'll disagree slightly with you there. But obviously nobody's ever feared a pass rusher the same way they feared Lawrence Taylor. That's for sure. But the blonde quarterback, Phil Simms, I think that's a really fun one. And if we are bringing back the Phil Simms, Abdul Carter, or Lawrence, Phil Simms, Jackson Dart, Lawrence Taylor, Abdul Carter combo, if that's what we're going for, I'm all in. Give me that 5th Lombardi trophy. We've all been waiting for it. Time to deliver. Would be absolutely fantastic to see. So, Corp, once again, thank you so much for the super generous super chat. Can't thank you enough for that. And really fun and exciting question as well. Very intriguing. I hope that the Giants are adding one of those franchise quarterback elite pass rusher combos to the mix, because that would definitely help us get one step closer towards the Super Bowl. And that's the ultimate prize here. So can't thank you enough, Corp. Thank you so much. All right. So Tim saying Kayvon Thibodeaux will be under the most pressure heading into 2025. We did already talk about Kayvon Thibodeaux on the stream if you didn't see it, Tim. So maybe rewind if you want or watch the replay later. But we did have a conversation, pretty good one, about Kayvon Thibodeaux. Agreed, he is one of the 5 players on this list. SPP Williams, yes, they must be telling Banks to turn his head in coaching. Must be. Ball skills need to improve. Got to turn your head around and actually get your hand on the football. So now I want to talk about the next player on the top 5 under pressure list. Round Earth saying everyone hit the like button. Yes, please. That would be much appreciated. And once again, Corp, thank you so much. I just can't get over the fact that you dropped such a big bomb on the chat, such a big scataboom. Joe saying these WR2s that Banks is going to face are no joke. Pickens, Devontae Smith, a little bit of Debo, and that's against our own division. Going to be a true test for him. And yeah, actually, I'll name some of the other ones before we move off of Banks and on to the next guy. I posted on the Fireside Giants Instagram today. If you didn't see this, if you're not following, make sure you do go follow. It's a swiper. You see every single matchup that Deontay Banks has this season. Took me quite a bit of time to go through this. He faces 6 wide receivers this season who put up over 1,000 yards at one point or another in their career, including, obviously, Deebo Samuel, George Pickens, Hollywood Brown in week 3, Quentin Johnson, obviously not a 1,000-yard receiver, but a good player in week 4, Brandon Cooks in week 5, that is a former 1,000-yard receiver, Devontae Smith in week 6 and week 8. Marvin Mims Jr. is one of his matchups, Ricky Pearsall, Romo Dunze, who knows what he could be. Maybe he's a 1,000-yard receiver this year. Matthew Golden for the Packers could be the same thing. Jamison Williams went for 1,000 last year. Matt Collins, Jordan Addison's gone for 900 before, and Trey Tucker. So a really tough schedule for Deontay Banks, definitely under pressure to step up against that group of wide receivers. So the next player that I want to discuss and being under pressure for the Giants is none other than 2022 first-round draft pick, 7th overall, right tackle, Evan Neal. Yes, he is under pressure to perform this year, and he's under pressure not only to perform, but to just show anything. Like, show us that you can be a decent guard. Show us that you can be a quality backup. I mean, there's few players who are under more pressure than Evan Neal, because I fear that if he doesn't do anything on the field this year, he doesn't make any sort of an impact, the New York Giants are going to be moving right on from him, and so will the rest of the NFL. That's something that I think for Evan Neal, because a guy who entered the league with so much promise and so much potential to flame out that quickly to where he was a healthy scratch for the majority of the games last season for the New York Giants. Obviously, he was coming off of the injury in the offseason, missed a lot of the summer, and then got into the lineup at some point during the year. But that early portion of the regular season, he was healthy, could have gotten in the lineup. The Giants just didn't want to put him in the lineup, made him a healthy scratch. So ultimately for Evan Neal, it's put up or shut up time. You're making this transition inside to guard now. And if you don't show any sign of life there, what are we going to do with you then? So I think Evan Neal is under a tremendous amount of pressure. It's a contract year for him, 4th season of his career. And again, he'll be a free agent next offseason. And he might end up becoming a player like Jedrick Wills. Now, if you don't remember Jedrick Wills, former Alabama offensive tackle as well, who was a first-round pick, a top 10 pick, never lived up to his hype with the Cleveland Browns. He is still currently a free agent right now. Hasn't signed with a team. Doesn't look like he's going to anytime soon. Maybe not until training camp. If Evan Neal doesn't show some progress at either guard or tackle this year, he might be the next Jedrick Wills, former top 10 Alabama offensive tackle who flames out of their rookie contract and doesn't find a new team. So Evan Neal is under a tremendous amount of pressure just to get better this year and show anything. Show that you can play. Show that you deserve to be on an NFL roster, because so far you haven't proven that you are capable of competing at the NFL level. So it's going to be really tough, and it's going to be not so easy for Evan Neal to make the rosters going forward. But this is the year. Prove that you could do something in 2025, and maybe you'll have a future. Yeah, I think he is pretty good at this, actually. This is a very underrated trait for Evan Neal. I've heard that he's very good at holding up numbers on the sideline, and he's really good at grabbing Gatorades and handing them because he's got such long arms, right? So he can grab a Gatorade and just hand it over to somebody really quickly and very easily. I might have to be this far away from you to hand you a Gatorade. Evan Neal can be like this far away from you and still get that Gatorade to you. So he's pretty good at that, too. Does Neal get first-team reps as guard, or does he got to start from the bottom, work his way up? Started from the bottom, now we're here. He's got to work his way up. That's for 100% sure. He can't be given anything. Just because he was a former number 7 player, can't be given a damn thing. Yeah, I could see Evan Neal being moved on from this summer. I don't think that's outside of the realm of possibility. So once again, you move into guard. If you don't start showing something at guard this offseason, and you know what? Even before then, before we even get to OTAs, I know OTAs are next week, but at OTAs, before we get to training camp in July, Neal should be showing the coaching staff, hey, these are the videos. I've been working really hard at this. I've been training on this. I've been doing this in the gym this year. You got to show up with some homework done in order to show that you are really trying your best here to turn things around. So big 6'8", let's go, big boy. Blocking time at guard. Yeah, listen, at 6'8", you can be an absolute mammoth on the interior. You're probably a little oversized for guard, but sometimes that can work because you'll have that power. And if there's anything that Evan Neal does do well on the field, it's run blocking. So maybe he will fit in at guard. We'll see. So before we wrap up the live stream, because as I said, guys, I don't think we're going to go the full hour today just because I do have another live stream to do at 6 and then another one to do at 7. So it's a busy night for me. If you weren't here for the beginning of that, 6 p.m. Eastern on the Bleacher Report app. You can find me there. 7 p.m. Eastern, you can find me on YouTube at Giants Collective. I'll be live on those. So before we do wrap this up, though, the number one person who's under pressure for the New York Giants this season, to me personally, is Brian Daboll. None other than Brian Daboll and his coaching staff. I'm going to add in there it's Daboll and his coaching staff because I saw somebody throw a question in there about Shane Bowen at some point. I saw somebody throw a question in there about Mike Kafka as well. This coaching staff needs to perform this year, and there's a few reasons why. First and foremost, they went 3-14 last year. That's unacceptable. They're all lucky to have their jobs, right? Brian Daboll is lucky to be the head coach of the New York Giants. He was the head coach of the year in 2022, and honestly, that's probably the only reason why he still has his job, because he did have a really good season in his first year with the team. But now you're in your 4th year with the team, right? You've had 3 years. 2 of them were terrible losing seasons, and in fact, you've gotten worse every single year. If you do not turn it around this season, you're gone. If the Giants don't look like a better football team within the first month of the year, you're gone. So this is the guy who's under the most pressure for the New York Giants. It's easily head coach Brian Daboll. But it also goes for the rest of his staff. Shane Bowen, you were just gifted a CB1 in free agency that the Giants spent over $17 million per year on, a safety in free agency who the Giants spent over $14, maybe $15 million per year on. Number 3 overall pick, Abdul Carter, was spent on the defensive side of the ball, and number 65 overall pick spent on the defensive side of the ball to give you a defensive tackle in Darius Alexander. How many more assets do you need, Shane Bowen? Your defense better be good. It better be a top 10 unit. If not, you're gone. So I say Brian Daboll, but it's really his whole coaching staff, because on top of Daboll, on the offensive side of the ball, the excuse for the offense has been, all right, well, they haven't had a quarterback. Let's see when they have a quarterback how the offense performs. Well, now they've got Russell Wilson. He's at least average. And if he looks terrible next year, I don't believe that it's a Russell Wilson problem. I believe that it's a coaching staff problem. So it's a Brian Daboll problem, and then it's also Mike Kafka problem because he's going to be guilty by association. So nobody is under more pressure to perform for the New York Giants this year than head coach Brian Daboll and his coaching staff. That's the subheading. Heading, head coach Brian Daboll. Subheading, his coaching staff. Guys need to perform this year. Like all of the players we talked about who are under pressure. Thibodeaux, Neal, Banks, everybody else. They're under pressure because they haven't lived up to expectations, but they haven't lived up to expectations because they've been playing in a pretty poor environment led by a coaching staff that's severely underwhelmed for the last 2 years. So again, very crucial. Nobody's under more pressure than the bald man right here, Brian Daboll, and his coaching staff. That's my opinion of it. Rocco, I'll see you there, Giants Collective, 7 p.m. Eastern. Looking forward to it. It'll be me, Chris the Entertainer, and Bad Dog tonight. No Adriana. She's still on vacation in Greece, having a great time. But me, Chris, and Bad Dog will be at it tonight talking Giants and previewing OTAs. Before I do duck out of here for the 45-minute live stream rather than the full hour, thank you so much to Sam Fountain for a super chat. I appreciate you very much, Sam. One of our biggest supporters here for Fireside Giants. Really do appreciate the super. Saying if Carter equals LT and Dart equals Sims, then Bobby O equals Carson, I think is what you meant. Carson was the heart and soul of that defense. Yeah, I really think that Bobby Okereke, not that he's under pressure like the other guys that we've mentioned, but I was going to say, not that he's under pressure like the guys that we mentioned, but I do think there is some pressure for Bobby Okereke to bounce back and look more like the 2022 version of him. He took a step backwards last year. And again, I've said that I think that is overblown. I don't think he was as disappointing last year as a lot of other fans seem to claim, like he was really bad last year. He wasn't. He took a minor step backwards, and I think it was a result of a really bad defense. But essentially, I think Bobby Okereke, the leadership that he demonstrated in 2022 translated to some of those other players on the fields, and we need to see more of that in 2025. There was a rumor earlier this offseason that maybe Shane Bowen doesn't like Bobby Okereke so much, and maybe that's why we saw a step backwards. If that's the case, that's pretty disappointing because Okereke, I think, is a great person and a really smart guy as well off the field. Like, we've had him on the channel and interviewed him. Really tremendous mind. Really want to see him succeed here. And I hope that you're right. I hope he is the Harry Carson of this defense and is that interior, enforcer from the linebacker position, because he is really good and he is a really good leader. And if he can be that, and then we have these pass rushers getting after it, we all know that this Giants defense could be truly special. So unfortunately, that is going to wrap up this live stream. Once again, going shorter today just because I have 2 more live streams to do. But if you want more of my analysis on the Giants, do make sure you tune in at 6 p.m. Eastern on the Bleacher Report app. Just go over to the Bleacher Report app and click Giants, and you'll see me pop up under the Creators tab. I'll be live there for 30 minutes. And then 7 p.m. Eastern until 8 p.m. Eastern, a full hour live stream with me, the Entertainer, and Bad Dog talking Giants on the Giants Collective YouTube channel. So once again, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Big shout outs to everybody who did leave the super chats. We did get the big one from Corp CA, which of course I got to give you another scatter boom for that. Thank you to Sam for a couple super chats and to Rob as well. But also thank you to everybody who tuned in for the duration of the live stream. Rocco, you were in here for a while. Mr. Absurd, I see you. SPP Williams, see you in here all the time. Colton, didn't see this. Gano is under pressure. You're absolutely right. Thanks for tuning in again, Colton. Dylan, Evan Neal, the All-Pro Gatorade provider. That did make me laugh in the back of my head. Thank you for tuning in. Shout out to everybody who tuned in. Cam Simpson had the first chat of the day. Christian was in here. JW was in here. All of you, thank you to everybody. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the live stream. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode. And if you're watching the replay, comment your thoughts down below. If you're listening to Apple or Spotify, make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. Without further ado, I'll catch you all on the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants. It's got a
perfect.